Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, stories from the 78 from the complimentary cafe here in downtown Skokie. I'm going to talk to a fabulous musician, Americana, blues, a little soul, a little bit of everything. Her name is Nikki O'Neill. She's got a new album coming out March 14th. I'm going to talk to her about it now in her favorite non-watering hole but coffee spot here on the Chicago's north side for this story from the 78. All right, so I'm in the friendly confines of the complimentary cafe. I'm here with Nikki O'Neill. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me here at your, you've been coming to this place like since 2021, you were saying.
Yeah, my husband and I moved here I'd say the summer of 2021. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there weren't a lot of cafes or anything going on in Skokie. And then this place opened, and me and a bunch of other people, students, and so we're super excited, and I'm happy to see it's been here ever since, and there's been more cafes that have popped up.
Yeah, and people have been coming in and out, but I imagine this is a place of almost refuge during the pandemic, you know, moving to a new city, and we haven't even talked about the music yet, but the reason why you moved to a new city was just to try something different, because let me get this right. So you started off in LA, then you went to Sweden, then you went to New York, back to LA, to Chicago.
That's right. Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah, so you born in Los Angeles. How long did you stay in Los Angeles before you moved out to Sweden?
I left LA, came to Sweden when I was 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was reading a little bit about you. You were inspired by soul music and blues, but Prince, Purple Rain, really had an effect on you, right?
Yeah, that was probably the first artist where I was really into Prince, and so were my classmates, because when I came to Sweden, I listened to a lot of music that my mom was playing, like there's Al Green and Santana and stuff like that. Nobody in Sweden really cared about those artists. It was like old music. But Prince, he was, huge everywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very, very influential, and also the fact that he had a band that, had men and women, black and white members, straight and gay members.
Yeah, very progressive for his time.
And I know it was that later on I learned Sly and the Family Stone were actually the ones who set the blueprint for that, but...
Yeah, which was introduced by like one of your first drummers in one of your bands?
Yeah, we had, I had a band together it was my first band, together with a guy who's Brazilian, and he was a rabid Prince fan, just like me. And he introduced me to all these other artists, said, well, if you like Prince, what about Funkadelic and Earth, Wind and Fire?
So was this out in Sweden, or was this?
This was in Sweden, yeah.
So what was that like growing up in Sweden and hearing all this sound from America? Knowing that you were born in America, like, did you feel like a sense of like missing out, or did your mom supply you with all that music that kind of had that connection back to home?
It did feel like home, and maybe more. The music provided a sense of home more than like the places we lived and the people that were around me. So if my mom played Al Green or Traveling Wilburys or
great
something.
Albums.
Yeah, it was great stuff. Dinah Washington was another one. Ray Charles, Timmy Euro, she's a white Italian soul singer from the U.S. That just, it felt like that was a connection back to home, which I wasn't quite sure what that meant.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was it tough just being overseas when you were finding your musical identity? Was it tough to like latch onto one thing, or was the thing Prince and Sly that was your peanut butter and jelly, and then you kind of just moved from there?
That's a great question, because I think finding identity musically, I also had an issue finding an identity as a person, because I was born in the U.S., but my mom came from Poland. And
you had a Russian grandmother?
Yeah, I lived with my mom, who was Polish, and my grandmother was Russian. So we spoke 2 languages in the house, so like Polish and English. Then we come to Sweden because my mom remarried with a Swedish guy. And then you throw in another culture, and I'm trying to fit in a new place. And so music felt like that was a sense of like to build my identity around that. Because there was, culture and language and all this stuff that I was like a constant outsider.
Yeah.
And with Prince, that multi-racial band and male-female band, I think it spoke to me, it resonated with me, that it was like, here's all these people together, and who come from different places.
Different strokes for different folks.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and Sly had this vision of, doing just that, which, and to this day, he's like huge inspiration for me.
And that's some of that journey is on the new record that's coming out March 14th?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of different themes. It's got 11 songs. I wrote the music and lyrics, which is the first time I've written everything. My other 2 records, I collaborated with other writers. But this one, it has, the main theme is maybe finding your place in the world. And so there's some songs about uprooting, exclusion, trying to fit in, whether you're an adult who's leaving your small town or because something else is calling, a different kind of life, or it's a kid who doesn't fit in school.
Which you are very accustomed to, just moving around as much as you have.
Yeah. So that is definitely one of the themes on the album.
So when did you start playing?
I started when I was 16.
Was that still in
late.
Sweden, or that is late? Was that still in Sweden, or was that in New York?
No, that was in Sweden. So I came to Sweden when I was 7, and I stayed there till I was 27.
Oh, you were there for a good while.
So I got to really know the culture and the language and everything. I was 16. I wanted to start earlier, but that didn't happen. So it was basically begging and pleading, and then I finally got a guitar at 16. And
was it tough to start like a rock band in Sweden?
not at all.
No? Okay.
Not at all. When in high school age, that's usually where I think you find your peers.
Sure, yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And then it's kind of interesting, in Sweden, at least at that time, there was a thing where the government would help you subsidize for your band practice space. So if you couldn't afford your rehearsal space, you could apply for like a cultural, like a subsidy.
Yeah.
And you'd say, I'm in a punk band, if that's what you're doing, and then I'm like doing this study.
Yeah.
And you like fill out, what you want to do, and they would help you like pay for.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's fun.
And guitar lessons too. That's like, those all were almost completely subsidized. So
that's fascinating. I'm racking my brain of like what bands I know from Sweden. Isn't the Hives? Aren't they a Swedish band?
Yeah, Hives. Going a little further back, Cardigans.
Oh yeah,
Love Me,
Loverful.
Love Me. Yeah,
on the Romeo and Juliet soundtrack.
Yeah. A Roxette.
Roxette,
like
Dangerous.
A lot of metal.
She's got the look. Yeah.
She's got the look. A lot of like.
So they were huge when you were there. Some of those bands when you, right?
But there's also like a lot of punk bands and indie bands that, and a lot of the pop that has like.
Ace of Base.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
yeah.
That too. And even later, like they're more like songwriters. There's people like Max Martin who would write for Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys, and later on Katy Perry and stuff.
Hundreds of
and
huge hits. There was like a music writing factory kind of.
Exactly.
Right? Like not factory, but that's where people went in the world to go.
Yeah.
So that's all. Well, I mean, it makes sense now what you're talking about with the subsidies of people. The incentive to learn music or be part of the industry.
Yeah, and there have been documentaries about that actually.
Wow,
they call the Swedish pop sensation. That one of the answers to it is probably that people got subsidized music lessons and bands were formed a lot.
So what was your band? What did it sound like when you first started?
That first started?
Yeah, what were you guys playing?
Oh, we wrote our own songs, but we were probably trying to imitate Prince. Some bad rip-off off of that.
Yeah, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when I was reading about you and your journey in this new album, this was also the benefit of some kind of program that helped with the record signing or the producing of the album.
Oh, okay, yes. So I got a grant from the Illinois Arts Council.
Right.
And it's called a Creative Catalyst Grant, and I was one of the recipients for this year. And they basically give you a grant, and it's supposed to help you to either further your artistic development if it's a certain project you're working on, or to further your career, to take it to a different place. And so since I'm new in Chicago and I needed to build relationships with Chicago press and venues and things like that.
So, so it's working.
It was incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Illinois Arts Council.
Yeah, no, I didn't even know that was a thing. So that's really good to hear about that for other artists that are out there who are looking for just a little help to get their name out there.
Absolutely.
But the journey what brought you back to the States, to New York, back to LA, because that's where you met your husband in LA. So you had a whole life before her husband in the States, because your husband's in your current band now as well.
Yeah, so that's rewinding the tape. So I left Sweden because I wanted to see what it was like to live in the U.S. again, and there's so much music that I love that originated in the U.S.
Yeah.
The soul music, the blues, and things like that. So I chose to go to New York, and that was kind of a romantic idea. I think as a teenager, I looked at a lot of cassettes, and it would say, "Oh, thank you, Manny's Music," or Electric Lady Studios.
CBGBs,
yeah,
right?
CBGBs. And so I kind of went on a romantic whim, and maybe not as prepared as I should be, but it was still a really great experience. And so I played in a couple of bands, nothing that really made it big, but there's one band that still exists, Kokolo Afrobeat Orchestra.
Oh,
so
cool.
They're kind of into the music of Fela Kuti, but they write their own stuff. And it's a 15-piece Afrobeat band with musicians from all over the world. So I was pretty excited to be
it seems like your thing.
Yeah, it was my thing. And I played guitar, and I recorded one album with them. But other than that, it was very zigzaggy.
Yeah.
I was just trying different things, playing guitar in different bands, writing songs for others.
Was this like in the 2000s?
Yeah.
90s?
I would say, it's the late 90s, it's the 2000s. Okay. And then eventually I got to LA, and in LA
Which is a whole different beast than New York City, right?
Entirely different scene.
Yeah.
But also extremely competitive.
Yeah, sure.
You have
got a lot of the record companies that are there, or recording studios.
Yeah, and you have the best of the best musicians.
Yeah. So
people that were the best in their country, and they took it as far as they could, and they decided to come to New York or LA or Nashville so you're up against that, and you're up against people that are very spoiled with top-notch entertainment.
Sure, of course.
Or just sitting and playing video games. So it's it's tough places to build a following and build an audience. But I got, from New York, I was invited to attend something called the NAMM show. That's like the big music instrument trade show in the world.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Okay, and so I get there, I scrape together enough money to get a ticket, and I knew somebody who had a pass, a badge you could get in, and I met my husband, my future husband there.
Wow.
And after a long distance relationship of 6 months, I decided to leave New York and move to LA, and we moved in together, and we've been together for 19 years. So,
look at that.
Yeah.
And you were part of a small community out there that was the type of music that your band is now, right?
Yes.
Explain what that is, just for folks who are wondering.
Sure. So in Los Angeles, it's a big city, so there's, like Chicago, there's going to be a lot of different music scenes and communities. There is an Americana community, Americana, alt country and country music community. And I don't play country, but some of the soul music I like has a foot in that style. Like if you listen to the music of Stax, and Al Green, it's Memphis. There's country and gospel, and it's that mix of stuff. So I was a little bit of an oddball in that community, but they welcomed me. And then, I made friends with them, and first through social media, then going to their shows. They heard me, and then two people there. They have a record label called Blackbird Record Label, which has now grown to have like 23 artists, mostly from California, some from Nashville, a lot of like Americana and country and indie folk stuff. So I got signed to them.
That's awesome.
And and it was just great. So I did, my very first record was before that. So that was like a self-released thing.
Sure.
Then I got signed, and then I did an album called World is Waiting. And that was with my LA band at the time. And so that's like a snapshot of me in LA with the Americana scene, and our other guitarist came from Nashville. So it's got the soul, gospel, kind of soul rock sound, but a slight twang to it as well. So.
Right. And then you decided to pull up roots once again, come to where your husband is from, Chicago area. You're in Chicago. You got a new album coming out on the 14th. You're going to have CDs, you're going to have vinyl, and you're going to have a listening party, I believe, coming up shortly as well, right? Yeah,
March 14 is the album release date, so we're going to have a listening party, and we're at Val's Hala Records.
Right there in Oak Park. Very cool place.
So we're gonna be there. We're also gonna play a couple of songs, like acoustic versions. We're gonna show a video to a song called Newcomer Blues, which is the last song on the album.
Right.
That came out today, February 28th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna show the video for that, and there's gonna be some like cocktails, specialty cocktails, and stuff. So that's one activity. And then we have the official album release show where we play plugged in.
Full
and that's
bore.
at the Colvin House. And that's April 1st at 6:30.
April Fool's Day, huh?
April Fool's Day, I know. And I always have to say it's not a joke.
No, it's not a joke. I think I might have misspoke earlier and said blues. Would you consider that a little blues in you, or are you more an Americana, soul, folky stuff?
You know, everybody has different reference points. So I've heard blues, like people say that, but then I know from playing shows and approaching blues venues and getting to hear, well, you're not really blues. So,
what would you say you are?
It's the mix.
The mix.
So I guess, my music doesn't sound anything like Bonnie Raitt. She's amazing. So, but she has this, I just use her as an example because she has this way of blending blues, rock. She throws in reggae even, and has thrown in like West African music.
Yeah.
And country and the singer-songwriter thing, but it sounds like Bonnie Raitt.
Yes.
So, and I guess I do it with my way. So if it's like soul, gospel, rock.
And you're in a really cool city, being Chicago had a lot of history of soul, chess records, blues, and
Staple
also
singers.
Gospel music was born in Chicago.
Yeah, gospel as an industry was born in Chicago, and Mahalia Jackson and these people, Thomas Dorsey.
Yeah.
came here, and you have the pioneers of soul, Sam Cooke.
Nat King Cole came here. He was here. He went to high school here, then went out to LA, but then came back and played here a bunch throughout the year. So
and then, of
you're a
course,
good
Curtis
company.
Curtis Mayfield.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. And then there's the Old Town School of Folk Music.
Yeah, absolutely.
That has, the folk music scene, and people like John Prine who started there. So
I think he's from Oak Park too. John Prine. I think he might have grew up in Oak Park.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, either Oak Park or Chicago, but he's a
Okay.
Chicagoan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Oak Park, but that's neither here nor there. Go ahead.
But it's just all exciting to me because I know, some of the like classic American folk songs, but I grew up in Sweden. I was a kid there, so I just like people know a lot of Woody Guthrie songs, or they know it like, they don't need to think about it. I'm kind of familiar with the Swedish folk music.
Right.
So
which is
me,
foreign for a lot of people here. So it's like the reverse, right?
Exactly. So for me, coming to the Old Town School, and I teach there one night a week. I teach group guitar classes for adults, and we have this thing called second half, which is a tradition they've had since the late 50s, where everybody who wants to, regardless of what level you're playing at, we all gather after the classes in the evening and do a big strum and sing of these classic work songs, spirituals, and it's free and it's open to the public. So you just got to go on the website of the Old Town School and check out second half, or free jams, I think it might be called. And you can just do it. Yeah, go in.
You mentioned Prince as one of your huge inspirations in Sly. I imagine Prince because he's a phenomenal guitar player. You're a guitar player. What about female guitar players? You got one that you tip a hat to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started out, Wendy Melvoin, who was in Prince's band, was a huge influence to me.
Power Generation, right?
Prince. Before the Revolution.
The Revolution.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Power Generation. Yeah, sorry.
Wendy and Lisa in Purple Rain.
That's right. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. But somebody who's like I really respect is Sue Foley. She's a blues guitarist from Canada, but like really into the Texas blues, and but also like finger picking, and I find her super inspiring because she's the real deal and she doesn't rely on any tacky shticks.
Yeah, well, and that's blues, right? Just the real deal, raw sometimes, and in your face sometimes, and
she can really play.
And I would say, for people who want to hear you really play, they can do that on the shows that you have coming up and the album that is coming out the 14th of March. But for people who want to find out more about you or listen to other things, what's the website they can check out?
NikkiO'Neill.com.
I imagine you'll be playing in more shows as it gets warmer outside.
Absolutely.
Just because that seems to be the thing in the Midwest, right?
Yeah. There's all these block parties, and I started getting into house concerts, so I'm definitely exploring those opportunities. So, and festivals, we're playing a couple of those. So it's either with a full band or it's me and my husband Rich doing, we can morph into like duo, trio.
Acoustic set or something.
Anything. Yeah, if you guys are curious, the band is amazing. So it sounds like this whole thing is about me, but I recorded the album live with the guys in the band. They put their hearts into it. They are so great.
Are they local in the Chicago area, or is everybody kind of from...
All Chicago.
All Chicago band.
Yeah, almost everything involved with this album is Chicago.
What's the biggest difference, would you say, between Chicago's music scene and the music scene in LA or New York?
LA, I can definitely say, LA is a lot about the presentation.
Okay.
So
about the show.
Yeah, there's the show, there's the look. And you got your impressive resume and you talk about it a lot and you dress the part, and sometimes it can make up for a loss of not so much
musicianship.
Yeah, but there's also people who are, incredible musicians, but I think it's like the self-hyping and the presentation, a visual presentation. So I think visual presentation is is great, and I think of it, it's like when I see Erykah Badu or Jimi Hendrix.
Sure.
It's like all of them are the art. It's like what they wear, what they write, the lyrics, like everything. But yeah, I think here people are not so like, if you walk around and you like hype yourself, they'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up here, and I've heard from a lot of people, they tend to say that Chicago just isn't full of shit.
They
not to say that everybody in LA is, but the music scene, they are more cutthroat. They don't help each other. Like during the pandemic here, talking to a lot of the venue owners, they all helped each other kind of stay afloat during the pandemic when there were no shows. And they said that's the biggest difference between LA, New York, and Chicago. Chicago looked out for each other, while other cities didn't
fantastic.
really. Yeah.
I mean, in LA, it's very tough to create a community unless it already has existed. It's very much, people play a show, they bring their friends. As soon as they're done, the room empties.
Oh, really?
And there's not like this. People stick around for the night to check out the next band.
Anybody that's been to Shuba's or the Metro or Buddy Guys or Kingston Mines,
You're there like for at least another band.
Yeah, you spend good money. You want to stay there and relax, have a good time and a cocktail, right?
Yeah, so it's you definitely feel that you have your little bubble of people, and it's very hard to expand to
Well, we're lucky that you are now calling Chicago home. So
I'm super excited. I love it here, and I always liked it even when I didn't live here. I always came at least once a year, sometimes twice, and I just really enjoyed the city. It's very cool with all its museums and great restaurants and
the winters haven't scared you off?
I'm not crazy about the winters, but
they're not as bad as they used to be. The climate change has really made, like, it's 60 something degrees and it's February. That's not a thing when I was a kid. I'll just say that.
Yeah, no, this day is like incredible.
Yeah.
And people sometimes say, well, but you lived in Sweden, you're used to the cold. I know how to dress in layers. Doesn't mean that I like it.
Right, no, I'm with you right there.
Yeah.
Well, Nikki O'Neill, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day. All right, that is the story from the 78 out here in Skokie. Tom Barnes, Chicago at gmail.com if you have a story from the 78 suggestion, or head over to the website storiesfromthe78.com. We'll see you later. Thanks.